All right, hello everyone. It's time for another Patreon Q&A, but first a genuine heartfelt apology. I've been super tardy with these, and this is like 3 months of questions all wrapped up into one. Obviously, I've been super busy, traveling a lot on the road. I have been, not feeling too great when I got back from that. The World Championships have been going on, obviously the major for CS. So it's just lots has kind of happened in a very short period of time, and it just meant I got further and further behind with these. Obviously, super sorry. If you want to withdraw your patronage, totally understand it would be more than acceptable under the circumstances. And obviously, even though I've got a Super PAC 2026, I don't envision this becoming the norm moving forward. But yeah, obviously, super sorry. Thanks for the support. And obviously, we'll try and get these being monthly moving forward. First question. The Shadow Council of Gulls that rule the world has decided you get to ban one thing from the entire world. A full-on permaban on any one thing for the entire world. What would you choose to ban? Now, obviously, there's a load of fun little jokes that I can make here, but I will answer it super seriously. And in doing so, have to think about what would give the most utility, the most benefit to all of mankind if something were to be banned. I mean, you could probably do a little ironic thing and say, like, well, censorship, although I don't think necessarily having no form of censorship whatsoever would necessarily be good. Obviously, you can imagine certain scenarios where that would be less than helpful. But I genuinely think money and politics. So I guess any form of like lobbying, any form of business being able to give money to politicians. I mean, you could even say having any form of campaign funds whatsoever, because even with all of the laws and the limits that we put on them in our respective countries all around the world, one thing remains true, and that's special interests get to inject their desires into a political system that should be completely apathetic to their desires. I mean, ultimately, the purposes of any form of governance, any political system, is to cater to the electorate, the people that put the government in power, and it is meant to be our whims and our desires that are catered to. And yet, increasingly, particularly in America, where it's been a problem for a long, long time, but increasingly in the UK, increasingly in Europe, there are businesses that are getting to essentially dictate policy by their proximity to politics and specifically the money that they inject into politics. I mean, without wanting to pick any particular side of the aisle or the example, America's politics has really just become the plaything of billionaires. And it makes me laugh when I see people like Bernie Sanders and AOC complaining about how it's now we've got oligarchs when, of course, the lefties have been taking oligarch money for their campaigns for decades as well. America is an oligarchy. That couldn't be more explicit. So I think generally speaking, I would just like to see some sort of like hard limit on, first of all, I mean, not related to the question, but a hard limit on how long you can serve in office. No insider trading, no form of any financial decision that can incur a profit. But equally as well, I think it should be illegal for businesses to give campaign donations of any kind. And any individual donation should be a hard limit. And there probably should be a hard limit on how much you can accrue in campaigning funds over the course of a year. You could make all of these laws tomorrow and pretty much fix American politics. But as I said, it's not just America. I mean, a lot of countries all around the world are finding themselves similarly compromised. And I just think if you got rid of that, the polluters of the planet, the users of working class people that essentially take your labor and then metabolize it into something horrific for the world, all of those would have less influence over our politics, be getting less sympathetic laws passed, fewer tax breaks, etc., etc. So I think that would be a net good for the planet. Next question from Direction. What's your favorite story from the first age of Middle-earth? Now, I don't read a lot of non-Tolkien Tolkien. Obviously, Tolkien did write specifically about, the First Age in the Silmarillion and other stuff. But I have read some of the other books, you might see some up on there. I do have some kind of like Tolkien, like unfinished tales and that kind of stuff. So it would probably be Turin Turambar. He's like some doomed hero who was cursed by Morgoth, and basically it's like the classic. Everything he tries to do just makes it worse. There is no avoiding the curse. He's based on a Finnish mythological figure called Kullervo, and he's another like classic tragic hero. So it's probably that. I mean, I think generally speaking, I don't actually like the writing of Tolkien. I think I like his stories, but I don't like the writing style. I find it to be quite dry, I guess, or maybe at times needlessly verbose. I also don't like the insistence on slotting in, like, here's a fucking song about it in the middle of, prose. So, yeah, a lot of his stuff, it's like, I think it's something you read when you're of a particular age. And it's not that Tolkien's a bad writer. He's obviously hugely influential. Pretty much everyone owes Tolkien a debt. If you've ever played like a fucking Dungeons and Dragons game or fucking Warcraft or whatever it might be, everybody owes him a huge debt to his cultural impact. But his writing, for me, as I've got older, it does leave a lot to be desired. I mean, I wouldn't list him in... he wouldn't probably crack my top 100 writers of all time, which I know is probably like sacrilege to some people, but there it is. And so I'm not particularly intellectually equipped to answer the question, but what I can say is there are like certain stories like that always stood out, probably because they were so specifically based on actual mythology that I would find interesting. So I think that's fair enough. I have no desire to go back and reread any of this stuff. I doubt I could even get through Lord of the Rings these days if I ever wanted to reread it. I mean, the only scenario I could envision me rereading it with Lord of the Rings, and keep in mind, Lord of the Rings is a cakewalk linguistically compared to stuff like the Silmarillion. I'd need to have a kid, and we need to be reading that as like bedtime stories in very small doses, I guess. So, but yeah, there you go. Turin Turambar, check him out if you're interested in that kind of thing. Who are some of your favorite actors and actresses of all time? It would be fun to hear some of your criteria to this. So, I mean, look, very tough. When you talk about like what constitutes greats, what would the criteria be? And for me, it's basically, I think, I don't really care about consistency. I don't care how consistently good you are. You can make dog shit movies, but if you ever craft out one of those mercurial performances, like something where you watch the movie and you forget you're watching a movie, or you see somebody go to a place that's like almost unbelievable. So an example of the former would be Daniel Day-Lewis as Bill the Butcher. It's a terrible movie, Gangs in New York. Daniel Day-Lewis is maybe overacting in the movie, but what he does, like the reason he was so resonant in the movie, is everyone else around him stinks, and everything else is very well. That's not true. Brendan Gleeson doesn't stink; he never stinks. But the main actors, Leo and Cameron Diaz, they fucking stink, and unfortunately, they take you out of the movie with their performances, and also they look larger than life. They just don't feel of that world. What Daniel Day-Lewis did, both physically and with his oration and his fantastic speeches, was really suck you into that film. And it's a shame nobody else was up to the task, because Daniel Day-Lewis is the best part of that movie, and it's not even close. So it has to be people that can either make you forget you're watching a film, or it has to be somebody that is really going to a place that is so... It's like, wow, like only this actor in this moment could make you identify with this character. And so, good examples of this are the prime De Niro years. Robert De Niro will always be one of the greatest actors of all time, even though he hasn't made a good movie in decades, His last good movie where he was good in it is probably Silver Linings Playbook. I can't remember off the top of my head what year that would be. I have a real soft spot for that movie. If ever I need to, have a little feel good cry, it's that or Dinner in America that's getting put on. So I think when you look at like a character like Rupert Pupkin from King of Comedy or Travis Bickle from Taxi Driver, they are fully fleshed out, three-dimensional, believable, quirky characters that the actor is making you fucking just wow. Like these are real monsters, these are real people, and the performance drags you into the believability of those people could exist. I also give special shout out, and again, you can cite De Niro for this. If anybody has ever done an impersonation of an actual player who was alive, like De Niro did with Jake LaMotta, the boxer, or I think Johnny Depp's Ed Wood is super underrated, and obviously Martin Landau in that got his Oscar for his Bela Lugosi, which was incredible. And so, these are like kind of my criteria. I am using mostly male examples here, so apologies. So let's go through some of them, and I'll start with the actors since we're talking about guys, and then we'll talk about the girls, and obviously there's a lot of performances, a lot of fantastic actresses that I really admire. Probably for me, in no particular order, you have to cite Marlon Brando. I think Brando did a number of good movies. A lot of people remember him for On the Waterfront. Probably for me, I just love him as Stanley Kowalski in Streetcar Named Desire. I think he brings that character who's larger than life to very real life and hits the high notes and all the emotional overwroughtness that needs. But I mean, Marlon Brando was just a master of his craft, and even when he blew up in weight because he had food addiction problems, he was still like a force on screen. And obviously in his later years gave us The Godfather, gave us fucking Kurtz in Apocalypse Now. I mean, like, there's not many. Another criteria, okay, here's another criteria: you can't just get lucky once. It's not about consistency. You can make bad movies, but you can't just have one performance and then everybody's like, oh, okay, wow. Do you remember when he did that movie? And then everything else sucks. And there are actors like that. There's a number of actors, I think, that have like that one standout performance and they never replicate it. They never get close. Who else? Man, it's so hard when you put on the spot like this. I mean, I mentioned De Niro. I mean, prime 70s, 80s De Niro is just the man. I mean, every movie he's in from Mean Streets onwards is just insane. And that run pretty much continues right to the middle of the 90s with Heat. And you can almost throw a dart in a board, and every movie you're going to pull out from De Niro is going to be this masterful command of the craft. You have to mention him. And obviously, in the same breath, you obviously have to mention Al Pacino. It's impossible to avoid Al Pacino. It's similar reasons. 70s, 80s Al Pacino, just incredible. Right the way through again to, Cruising, which I talk about like William Friedkin a lot. I think that's a super underrated film, actually. I think Pacino is fantastic in it. But obviously, everybody says these guys. George C. Scott, I love, I adore George C. Scott. I think George C. Scott is basically just like, again, a master of rage. If you need, if you need somebody to be angry, he can do it. If you need somebody to be completely crumpled up and defeated, he can do it. And he never got the respect that he deserved as an actor. For me, I mean, we've talked about him on Foreplay. I love him. He's in Exorcist 3. I think he carries that movie. That movie's excellent. It's such an underrated film. But he was great when he did his portrayal of Patton. Fucking excellent in that. The comedic chops for How I Learned to Stop Worrying and Love the Bomb, Dr. Strangelove, just incredible. Denzel Washington, I mean, can anyone disagree with that? Denzel Washington was just insane value for money every movie he was in. I'll watch garbage with Denzel Washington, and I know the movie is garbage, but Denzel Washington just has a baseline of performance that is so exceptionally high. And his ability to riff and improvise, I just love him. And I mean, like, I started out I remember when I first watched Training Day, and I couldn't quite process what all the fuss was about. That everybody was kind of like raving about this movie, and I kind of watched it, and it left me a little bit cold the first time. I was like, this is just a really over the top modern crime movie where I can pretty much see all the story beats coming, down the pipe, and I was like, I was left very like, whatever, And then I got it on a rewatch. I think I bought it in a sale, got it on a DVD, and I was like, all right, whatever, I'll put it on again. And I'd had time to like read up a little bit about it and how much improvisation he put into the role. And when I watched it with that knowledge through those eyes, what I realized was like, holy fucking shit, like this guy pretty much carried this movie. Like, I mean, he just carried the film. And it gave me a renewed respect for Denzel Washington, someone I'd always loved going, like, I think maybe the first Denzel Washington film I ever saw was Glory. But I mean, I've watched so many of his movies and so many of his bad movies, and I think he elevates every single thing he's associated with. I mean, even stuff like what's it called, The fucking Equalizer or whatever. It's just worth watching for him. He is like, and then there'll be films that would be probably insanely bland if it wasn't for Denzel Washington. I'm thinking of stuff like Flight, about that. I mean, about the alcoholic pilot. Yeah, just a delight. Who else? Kirk Douglas. I mean, I just love him. The angularity of his face, his ability to play heroes and villains both equally in terms of your admiration, but also your loathing. He's in one of my favorite movies, Ace in the Hole. I love him in the little silly action romps he did, like the Vikings and stuff like that. I used to love that fucking movie as a kid. I remember my grandparents putting that on for me like one Sunday afternoon, and it just blew me away. I just couldn't believe what I was seeing. Like his Einar was just so fucking good, and that's always been a favorite ever since. There's probably a ton of others. I mean, obviously I'll say as well, I love Robert Mitchum. Robert Mitchum's great. James Stewart. Sidney Poitier. I don't think I'm gonna like say any names that are like gonna truly shock you. I will also say just quickly, because this comes up a lot. People always ask me about like comedians and comedic stuff, and I was never really a fan. Like I've seen all the Marx Brothers movies. I wouldn't describe myself as a fan of the Marx Brothers. I recognize like how the snappy dialogue, and I totally understand their popularity. It was never it for me. And the same with kind of like a lot of the other talky, fast, snappy, kind of comedians. But for me, the ones that I grew up loving was Abbott and Costello. I fucking loved Abbott and Costello as a kid. Again, introduced to them by my grandfather. And I think I've gone back like pretty recently, like last year, and watched some Abbott and Costello movies, and they're fucking great. They are like legit funny, great, like just really good stuff. So, just to add some fucking, there's a little curveball for you. Actresses, I mean, again, this is like super hard because probably meant to be picking more contemporary actresses. But, I mean, I always go back and think of the classic movies that I like. And, I'm a sucker for probably shit. I mean, how far back do we go? Like Katharine Hepburn was just, I think she was like just incandescent, and she was really, really good for a really, really long period of time. I was thinking a lot. Obviously, we lost Diane Keaton recently. Again, I loved her. I loved her. I mean, I was in love with her. She was like the quirky, fun city girlfriend that you always kind of wanted, like girl next door charm with genuine quirk, but like, this kind of indescribable beauty. But she was a fantastically talented actress. I mean, and she did some pretty interesting projects, some of them quite heavy. Like Looking for Mr. Goodbar. That's a fucking gnarly movie if you know what happens in it. She was great in that. Shit, hold on. Who else? I'm trying to. Man, these are some old picks. Like, probably shows like how how little I'm kind of watching like more modern movies, if you get what I mean. I mean, favorite female performance of all time, and this is like crazy, but it's true, is Gloria Swanson. Gloria Swanson in Sunset Boulevard. It's my favorite performance by any woman ever in any movie across time. She is so good in it, and it is one of probably my favorite movie. I've said this on Foreplay. It's probably my favorite film of like ever. It's the one I could watch it every day and never be bored of it. It's just so amazing. So that probably answers the question. I just feel like we kind of need a more up to date female actor. Right, hang on. I'm gonna have to Google. I'm gonna have to just jog my memory here. I mean, yeah, there you go. Frances McDormand. How could I forget about her? Wow, she's in so many good films. Blood Simple and Fargo, Three Billboards. Yeah, she's great. I mean, really, really good in everything she's in. I have a super soft spot for Kate Winslet. She's on the list here as well. I mean, Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind, again, is another one of my like go-to movies. If I need to remind myself I'm a human being with feelings, and I love her in that. The quirk chungus queen in that movie, but I mean, she's like so good in everything else. I have a soft spot for Emma Stone. I think if I had to pick someone a bit more modern and a bit more contemporary, rather than picking people that are in black and white movies, I think probably as well, if you want to talk about method actresses, because we don't really talk a lot about, we talk about method actors and we go, oh wow, he went to such a dark place, and then it would probably be Hilary Swank. She did a number of movies that required her to really go far out there, $1 Million Baby being one of them, where she has to play a female boxer, and then, sorry for the spoiler, she has to play like someone who's disabled and dying, quadriplegic. But also, she was in Boys Don't Cry, which is, again, a really, really dark movie. I think she was Al Pacino's partner in the remake of Insomnia, where she's really good in that. I definitely fuck with her. She's great. And you can probably make a similar thing. See, the juices are flowing now. I'm remembering movies. You probably make a similar claim for Charlize Theron, although I think Charlize Theron, again, she has some heights, and she's done great work, like Monster, but probably not really deserves to be mentioned in the same breath as some of these like other names that I've thrown out there. So hopefully that answers the question. I mean, I could talk about that shit all day and have a podcast where we sort of do. Zumba, what are some funny news stories you've recently seen? I mean, trying to think of any that like really jump off the top of my head, but I mean, there have been some horrible news stories I've seen, but trying to think of a funny one. Let me see. Let me go to the BBC front page and try and jog my memory. Oh, God. No, everything's awful. Just everything's awful, apparently. Yeah, God, I'd really... These are the questions that catch you off guard. Like, there's definitely going to be something out there that I've seen where it's like, it's so stupid. But right now, obviously, we're doing the podcasts and everything. I really have a tendency to like tunnel in on the negative stuff. And, that's just the unfortunate reality about doing any form of commentary on politics or what have you. So I might roll that over to next month and try and find something for you, because I feel you've been a bit shortchanged here, but it's kind of caught me on the hop, so apologies. Another one here. Which government and administration has disappointed you the most in your lifetime? Say it after me. It is, of course, Mr. Tony Blair and the Blairites and his cabinet. Yeah, I mean, look, without boring you with all of the details, Labour was at one point a genuine political party that seemed to have the interests of the working class at its core. And we had a leader called John Smith, and John Smith was everything you would want from a leader of a party with the interests of the working class at its core. He was, beer belly, big guy, drinker, been around, had some shit jobs, seemed to be removed from a lot of the elitist, kind of backgrounds lots of politicians have, and was a genuinely beloved figure. And he dropped out of a heart attack, and anyway, through a a series of convoluted events, we eventually get the rise of Tony Blair. Now, at this point in my life, I was very active in UK politics. I was very, I hadn't become the jaded figure that you know me from my work. I was actually still a bit idealistic, and I believed you could elect parties, and I believed you could vote people in and it would lead to meaningful change. I've obviously realized that's complete nonsense. It is nonsense. It doesn't matter which political party you go for. It doesn't matter what they promise you. They will renege on as many of those promises as is politically expedient to do so. They will reward all of their friends with contracts and money, and ultimately the world will continue to trend in one direction. New wars for resources, the working class being told, you're going to have to suck up the excess and tighten your belt while the rich get richer. All the politicians perform self-enrichment and walk away with state pensions and all these benefits for being public servants. All the while, they're scamming you and not being held accountable to the same standards. You go to prison if you shoplift. They take your public taxpayers' money, put it in their fucking pocket, and they're just fine after an inquiry. Isn't that weird? And so I learned these hard lessons with New Labour. New Labour. So, New Labour said they were going to fix politics and they were going to become electable. We're going to have no income tax rises, and we were going to, put all the money into the NHS and blah, blah, blah. And Tony Blair quite famously made a number of promises when he released the manifesto. He made 50, I believe it was, manifesto promises. Right, yeah, here we go. There was a 97 manifesto. It made 229 individual pledges. They made a bunch of... they had a bunch of easy ones, a bunch of layups in there. But basically, they had, so many issues when it came to the NHS, when it came to education targets. They did introduce a national minimum wage. That was probably the biggest victory of the Blair years. But the rest of the time, it was a bit of a nightmare. And then, of course, New Labour got us into the war in Iraq because Tony Blair, a devout Christian, felt it was the Christian thing to do to stand with the also Christian George Bush. And to show just how Christian we all are, we invade a country that had absolutely nothing to do with the attack on American soil, killing hundreds of thousands of civilians in the protest, lying about it, and then mysteriously murdering a whistleblower doctor. I'm sorry, he suicided, my bad. So, yeah, I mean, ultimately, I watched this New Labour cabinet that I'd paid lip service to. Didn't vote for them, I think because I might not have been old enough to vote. Had I been, I would have voted, and I would have been duped. But after that, after the first few years in New Labour and Tony Blair, this fucking Etonian wearing the working class identity like a fucking skin suit, once I saw that, I was like out. And then obviously we ended up with the war in Iraq after 9/11. And that was it. I was done with fucking politics at that point. I mean, I did everything I could have done to protest going into that war. It didn't make a single bit of difference. I lost my best friend in that war due to friendly fire. I watched the Ministry of Defense cover it up and lie to his family, even to the point of soldiers, getting up and lying at his funeral, only for a fucking BBC 2/Guardian investigation to reveal the truth. And then from the MOD to try and make things right with the family after admitting, yes, we essentially know your son was killed by friendly fire and we covered it up. After that, there was no way back for me with British politics. I mean, there was no way back for me with New Labour or anything. And I look at the continuation of Labour, where we're at now with Starmer. It's somehow got worse on the Labour side of things in a post-Corbyn landscape. The Tories are a fucking joke, although it is interesting to me that the Tory party can now make the claim they're the progressive ones, having given us Rishi Sunak and now Kemi Badenoch as being, party leaders. We hurtle towards the reality of a reformed government, and I can't help but feel the turning point for British politics was when a man called John Smith dropped dead of a heart attack. Anyway, a dour answer, but the truth all the same. Jerky, why is it that big live streamers seemingly always have batshit insane things happen? Latest is referring to Mizkif. They just don't live in the real world, mate. I mean, you have to understand they by design live in a hyper reality that is ultimately, meant to. They've sacrificed normality for having a constant stream of content. But what ends up happening when you live in a place where everything is made accessible to you based on your celebrity, suddenly those things that were rewards become expectations, and once they become expectations, they become demands, and once you don't get the things that you demand, you become a generally nasty person. And this is why a lot of people end up being manipulative in this kind of world. It's why the relationships don't last. I don't just mean sexual relationships. I mean friendships, relationships with family, business relationships. Eventually they always want to be the top dog, the person making the most content. And so like when you live like that, your life is batshit insane. And by the way, most of them don't mind. If you were to ask them, would you like a nice, quiet life where you have people in your life you can trust, no drama, you can walk around, blah, blah. None of them would fucking sacrifice what they've got. It's like you can keep all the money you've already made, but you just can't have the celebrity moving forward. None of them would trade it. Not one. And that's just the reality. That's the choice that they've made, and that's why their lives are the way that they are. I mean, a lot of these people, to even get to the top of a field like that, you have to be kind of, I don't want to say sociopathic. It's such a fucking throwaway word these days, but you have to have something wrong with your mechanism. You know what I mean? That's just how it is. And I wouldn't want what they have. I wouldn't want what they have or to be what they are. No, not for me. Right, 2 Patreon questions back to back. What movies do you think are required viewing? Movie questions. So, yes, obviously I already said it. Sunset Boulevard's just fucking a must-watch. Obviously, Citizen Kane. It's the birthplace of modern cinema. I mean, listen, I think, this is just my opinion, like a must-watch, I would say Fight Club. I think particularly if you're around my age, it kind of tapped into the Gen X kind of ethos, particularly the first millennials that came after Gen X is where a lot of the confusion came, because you had Gen X sensibilities and you were trying to interface with the millennial world. And I think the tone of Fight Club, the movie particularly, even more so than the book, honestly, it just gets that. It just gets like what the first like millennials / tail end of Gen Xers were kind of going through as they grew up, watching the world change and kind of realizing that some of the benefits that previous generations had were no longer there. And I don't, kind of a generational rug pull. And I think the movie nails that. Pulp Fiction, for sure. I'm like trying to imagine my Blu-ray shelf downstairs, which it would have been easy to just send you a picture. But I'll say The Exorcist. I think it remains probably the strongest example of when horror transcends the genre and becomes something special. Similarly, I'll proffer Dawn of the Dead for similar reasons. No, you don't need to have seen Night of the Living Dead. And shit, man. I mean, there's just so many. Godfather, Goodfellas, Shawshank Redemption. Like, these are cliches, but they're cliches for a reason. So there you go. There's a bundle. I mean, have at it. But I probably could have come up with some better examples. But they're all true. Next, same individual. What was the first video game you ever played, and which was the first game you ever loved? First video game I ever played, man. You'd be putting me on the spot asking me that one, because I probably started playing on cassettes in the 80s. I had a Spectrum 48K, which was about this big, and you had to plug a separate cassette deck into it to load the games. And the games took 3 minutes to load, approximately, each time. And when you completed a level, you had to press play on the tape again, and then you wait another minute or two. So, first game I loved. I couldn't tell you the first I played. That would be impossible. First I played probably would have been like a Pong or a Centipede. Because I think we had an Atari before we had a fucking Spectrum. I think Spectrum's actually an upgrade. I think we had an Atari 2600. with the cartridges and the big joystick, the big thick joystick with the red button. So it's probably Pong or Centipede. Probably one of those two were the first. First game I ever loved would be Chaos. I've talked about this game endlessly. It's by Julian Gollop, the guy who would later go on to make XCOM or UFO. If you know it, before it kind of the whole XCOM thing took off. He is the king of turn-based strategy. Chaos is basically also known as War of the Wizards, Chaos War of the Wizards, and it's just quite literally. I mean, it's the first ever MOBA. It's it's basically up to 8 wizards in an arena, random spells, fight, and it's a different game every time. And different spells, and every spell has a percentage of working, and if it's a creature, it's an illusion, but you can instantly dispel an illusion, so typically they'll only last one turn, but you have to wage that with if I cast a real one, so I had all this like little depth and nuance to it. No two games were ever the same. It created so many spin-offs. Julian Gollop obviously went on to make a bunch, including Lords of Chaos, which was a big budget kind of sequel to Chaos. He made Laser Squad. He made fucking XCOM. Can't remember if he was involved in Rebel Star and Rebel Star Raiders, but I want to say he was, because it's Julian Gollop, and they were just fantastic turn-based games. The first game I loved was Chaos, and then probably followed by Laser Squad, and then probably followed by XCOM. These games were fucking just insane generational land points for how good gaming had kind of got. Next up from Tor. What are some of your favourite cars, car designs? Do you like Aston Martin? I hate to do this to you, Tor, especially as you are paying for the privilege of this question. I do not drive. I do not care about cars. I have zero love in my heart for cars. Couldn't give a fuck about Formula One. Probably never going to drive in my life. Never hold a driver's license in my life. Have no interest in it. As long as I can get around, that's good. I've always lived in cities with public transport. Uber exists. Do not care. When I was a kid, I used to joke about having the Jaguar XJ220 because it was just this fucking gauche, bougie, ridiculous, speed car that was custom made with a gold engine. So I used to joke a lot about that. I mean, put it this way: if I ever did drive and I wanted a sports car, it's a Porsche 911, Porsche Carrera turbo red. They look the shit still. That's that. That's all I would ever, do. But unfortunately, I have no strong feelings about cars whatsoever. Next up, how effective do you think some of the despotic regimes of the past would have fared if they'd had a go at modern sports / esports washing? Oh, I mean, 100%. The Nazis, the real bad guys, they would have crushed it. They would have fucking crushed esports washing. I mean, look at what they tried to do with the Olympics and everything else. I mean, obviously, like, just being detached from the evil and the atrocity, they had a handle on propaganda. Like, I mean, that would essentially go on to be the fucking playbook. The modern their approach to cinema, which would, of course, later be, emulated over and over and over again by regimes. Their approach to, like, messaging, advertisements, essentially, it seems like a joke, but almost like the branding of the party was so fucking crazy that it probably made them a lot more palatable and obfuscated a lot of the evil that they perpetrated in the eyes of a lot of people. They would have crushed video games and esports washing. Same with the Soviets. You fast forward, and you can make an argument. I mean, there's definitely discussions to be had. Was it the kind of the people that broke out and had the revolution, and started Stalinites? Was their propaganda the strongest, or what would come much, much later with the kind of when the KGB essentially wholesale started to dominate Russian politics during the Cold War? I mean, ultimately what you would have ended up with is you would have ended up with not just sports washing, but you would have had a bunch of fucking Soviet competitors all cheating their tits off in the games to win, because that's the messaging, right? We do things better on our side of the Cold War. We do things right, and it leads to success. So, I mean, obviously, they would have all crushed it. I think, actually, the funny part is Saudi Arabia haven't done a particularly good job, have they? Like, everyone still talks about all of their shit. They don't have any real success to show for any of it in esports. It's just kind of been one long stream of embarrassing failures after another. So China, though, there was a news story just the other day. James Fudge reported it. And shout out to all the people, by the way, who donated to the GoFundMe, which we've now closed. We hit our targets. We raised over £24,000, which is going to significantly help pay off his medical debts. And he's very, very grateful. And I'm grateful to all of you for chipping in, particularly ahead of Christmas. But anyway, yeah, James Fudge reported that one of the guys that was the head of esports in China just got sentenced to death. 2-year suspended sentence, where if I think no new crimes are committed or brought to light, the death sentence will be commuted to life imprisonment. So, merciful China. Another one. If you were given the power by Big Gull to completely restructure the Premier League, including possibly banning Oiler money, etc., how would you go about it? I.e., what does your ideal Premier League setup look like? So I think, first of all, I would like to move to some... I know financial fair play is trying to achieve this, but the financial fair play rules are all over the place. And, you know, we've turned a blind eye to Man City's bullshit, quite possibly Aston Villa's bullshit, and maybe Everton's bullshit, but we haven't turned a blind eye to other teams that we've penalised. It's all over the fucking place. I just think, like, having a hardcore... like a hard limit on transfer money and a hard limit on salary cap fixes a lot of the problems with people buying the league, creates a greater equality over equity, I should say, rather, over the course of a league season. And yeah, I would totally make the fair and proper persons test way more robust. Like, we've had some ridiculous entities owning clubs in Britain. Why can't we have a rule like the Chinese have as well? Like, maybe if you want to own a football club in England, maybe you have to have some sort of English business associated with it, or someone on the board, because it gets ridiculous when you've got Americans that don't really care about the sport. And, like, you know, this is what's happened to, like, Man United, and, you know, like, they ultimately, it's just another asset to them. It's just something else they own. And yeah, they'll make money available for you to spend, but they don't really care about the day-to-day running of it. You know, as a Newcastle fan that watched the great Sir John Hall fucking, you know, run the club as a community member, and, you know, and run a lot of other sports clubs as well. You miss that kind of ownership where there's a genuine affinity and connection to the community that the club serves, and we've become so far removed from that yeah, I would introduce some sort of rule where that, you know, it could even be somebody like you elect, like from the fans, like a fan representative has to be on every board of every Premier League club, and they have this exact same voting rights as even the investors, people that have put money into the club. It's just one person is elected to represent the will of the fans, and they're involved in board decisions. Something like that, you know, because it's getting ridiculous. Of course, none of that will happen. We are heading towards the European Super League. It's coming. We've resisted it once, but that's that. Right, final three. Wizard, what country have you not visited yet that you would like to visit? Like, what's the top 2 or 3? Well, funnily enough, I'm going to get to visit one of them. Singapore. Always wanted to go. I hear it's a wonderful country. I hear it's safe and it's clean and the people are warm and hospitable. And we just announced we're going to be doing the major there. So that's fucking sick. I will almost certainly be hosting that, as it's a PGL event. Although, you know, let's see. Maybe I fuck up my relationship with PGL in 2026 in some horrifying way. But I can't wait to go. It's a place I've always wanted to visit. After the major, my plan is to spend some time there, because it's a long way to fly to only go and work. And I'm looking at some like the cool like resort places on some of the islands around it. Sadly, I also want to visit China. I don't think I'll ever get to do it. And I just think China has this incredible rich history. They've just given so much to the world, their culture. Um, and it pains me to think I might go my entire life never being able to go to China because of things I've said and their current government. But we'll wait and see. But definitely, Singapore is a banger, and sometimes the universe gives you gifts. So I'm definitely looking forward to that. Next up, Ty Jenks. If you followed it, what were your thoughts about the great skin cell meltdown of 2025? And do you think Valve went far enough? Total value of all skins went from approx 6.5 billion USD to 3 billion USD before recovering. Well, this is the thing, isn't it? It did recover. Ultimately, it was a bit of a panic, and people weren't thinking, look, has it devalued some of the higher and rarer skins? Absolutely. Are there still some incredibly rare skins that aren't going to be, you know, created from this new system of trade ups? Absolutely. Are the items you use to trade up into knives and gloves, have they gone up in value? Absolutely. Are people buying them up en masse to hoard them, to create scarcity, to increase value? Yes, it's the skins market. People always find a way to manipulate it, and that's just going to be the case moving forward. You know my views on it. I don't have a problem with people collecting fucking pixels or whatever. You do you. But I hate what it does to the integrity of the sport I care about, and skins have been a net negative in that regard. And so, obviously, I don't think Valve went far enough on some of the other issues. As I said, they should just ban tournaments from having anything other than a default skin set. And that can be the latest case. Valve can just do that. But no, instead, you've got all these players cozying up to skins traders, taking these fucking skins and borrowing them, keeping them, scamming them. It's also pathetic and cringe to me. So, yeah, the skin cell meltdown was fun. It's a shame it didn't last, but, whatever. And finally, a Supremely Censored asks, for someone who hasn't been paying attention to CS for about 3 to 4 months, what is your favourite ongoing storyline, be it good or bad? Well, here's what I'll do. I'll give you a good, that I wouldn't say I'm enjoying it, but it's worth talking about. And it is, of course, the rise of NIP. I think what they've been able to do with the team that they've got is like pretty impressive. I've definitely been enjoying that. I think X Kaspersky is really, really good. Shush is good. I don't think Snappy gets enough respect as an IGL. I think Wrinkle's a prospect. I think once they replace you jerks, they're definitely going to be one to watch in 2026. Similarly, I love Paravision. We've talked a lot about that during the No Majors Club, which I'm recording this in the middle of. And I think what James has done, they should have made the playoffs. They got super unlucky at the major. They had to play real heavy hitting teams, and they just weren't able to get the wins in the best of ones that would have given them enough runway. But Belchnok and Jello are sick. Nota is definitely a guy who's got this great style, really good with the recoil control. Maybe they do have to replace AW. Hey, good news. Russia's got a fuck ton of young talent. It's crazy. So, love Paravision. I love M80. Hanging in there, flying the flag for North America. Lake is an absolute fucking boss. Swish is playing career best Counter-Strike. So I'm loving all of that. Those are like some great storylines just to enjoy. Similarly, on the more negative side, I have been enjoying the consistent, persistent failure of Falcons to show that even having the best team and spending the most money will not buy you success is a very good message. I have a dreadful feeling in my gut they're going to win the major. I hope it's not true. I'm trying to manifest the opposite. If somebody were to win the major, the team I would want to win it because it sends out all the right messages is Furia. If Furia do win the major, they're currently the number 1 ranked team in the world, so it's not as crazy as it sounds. Here's what it says. Good scouting, hard work, and international collaboration, as well as veteran smarts, can win you the best trophies. I'd be super happy for Fallen, super happy for K Serato and Yuri, super happy for Molodoi, and of course super happy for Yekindar. All of these players deserve a world championship for different reasons, and it's all coming together right at the end of the year. So I actually think for narratives, 2025 has kicked ass. I think it's been one of the best years storyline-wise for Counter-Strike we've had. We watched the ruthless, remorseless Vitality machine at the start of the year start to break apart, and we wondered who was going to emerge as the best team of the second half of the year. Nobody had Furia on their fucking bingo card, right? Like everyone was thinking, oh, it's going to be Spirit, or, wow, could it be Mouse? Could it be this? Could it be that? No, it was Furia. So it's just been a super cool year. We're gonna. Oh, will it be Falcons? Will it be Mongols? Oh no, they've lost Senzu. So like, it's just been a super cool year for storylines, and it's gonna end strong. I think whoever wins this major, it's probably not going to be Vitality. Although if it was, whatever, it could be Spirit. Yeah, cool for its own reasons. But I have a nagging suspicion that we're going to crown somebody that we ain't crowned before, and that's going to be a pretty cool story. So there you go. Those are the Patreon questions. As always, guys, thanks for supporting me. I'll be back with the December ones very soon. Make sure you get them up on the Discord, and I'll be dropping some content on Patreon in the not too distant. So thanks a lot. Take care of yourselves. See you soon.